Stop scrolling for a second, because what I'm about to tell you sounds petty at first, until you realize how far an HOA pushed me and how their own rules became the weapon that destroyed them. This didn't start with anger. It started with a letter, a perfectly polite, passive-aggressive HOA notice taped to my door like a scarlet letter for homeowners. It claimed I had violated multiple community standards. No warning, no discussion, just fines. I read it once, then twice, and that's when I realized something felt off. They weren't enforcing the rules equally. They were enforcing them selectively. My grass was half an inch too tall. Meanwhile, my neighbor's jungle somehow didn't exist. My fence color was non-compliant, yet 3 identical fences down the street were magically acceptable. So I did what they never expected. I stopped arguing. Instead, I started documenting. Every violation, every inconsistency, every ignored complaint. I photographed overgrown lawns, illegal sheds, unapproved paint colors, broken bylaws, and emails where they contradicted themselves. And I didn't say a word. Then the fines escalated. Late fees, threats, legal language meant to scare me into submission. That's when I noticed the rule that would change everything. Buried deep in the HOA bylaws was a clause about uniform enforcement. It stated that if rules were not enforced consistently across the community, any enforcement action could be legally challenged and nullified. They had handed me the match. So I did exactly what they demanded. Every single rule. I measured my lawn daily, repainted my fence to the exact shade listed, parked my car with military precision, followed the handbook like it was scripture. Then I turned the spotlight on them. I submitted formal complaints, dozens of them, about every other homeowner in violation. Each complaint cited the exact bylaw, time-stamped photos, and references to previous ignored cases. The HOA board meetings turned into chaos. They couldn't find everyone, they couldn't ignore me, and they couldn't admit selective enforcement. Their system began eating itself. Homeowners started asking questions. Why were some people fined and others ignored? Why were rules suddenly being enforced overnight? Why was the HOA buried in paperwork? Then came my final move. I formally requested HOA records under state law, emails, violation logs, enforcement histories. What I received was a gold mine. Proof of favoritism, proof of selective enforcement, proof they had violated their own bylaws repeatedly. When I presented this to a lawyer, he smiled. That's never a bad sign. One legal letter later, and suddenly the HOA wasn't threatening me anymore. They were negotiating. Fines disappeared. Violations vanished. Rules were reinterpreted. And then came the part they never saw coming. Several board members quietly resigned. New elections were called. The rule book changed. And my violations erased. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't emotional. It was surgical. I didn't break a single rule. I used them. And that's the lesson here. HOAs survive because people react emotionally. But the moment you slow down, read carefully, and play their game better than they do, the power flips. If you're dealing with an HOA nightmare, remember this: rules are only dangerous when you don't understand them. And sometimes, the best revenge is letting the system collapse under its own hypocrisy.